The Snow Queen is an original fairy tale written by Danish author Hans Christian Andersen and focuses on the struggle between good and evil. It is one of Andersen's longest and most highly acclaimed stories, frequently reprinted in illustrated storybook editions for children. And Disney made a movie about it, so of course everyone loves it. But Frozen is quite different from the real story. In Andersen's version of the Snow Queen, the devil makes a magic mirror that magnifies the evil and ugly aspects of people and things. While attempting to carry the mirror into heaven, it slips from his grasp and falls to earth, shattering into pieces. The wind blows these splinters all over the world, and they get into people's hearts and eyes, freezing their souls and distorting their view of things. And there's only one way to get it out. Years later, a little boy named Kai and a little girl, Gerda, live next door to each other and become best friends as they play together in their window box garden. One day, splinters of the devil's mirror get into Kai's heart and eyes, and Kai becomes cruel and no longer cares for Gerda. Kai goes out and hitches his sled to a curious white sleigh driven by the Snow Queen in disguise. Outside the city, she reveals herself to Kai and kisses him twice, once to numb him from the cold and a second time to make him forget about Gerda and his family. She takes Kai to her icy palace. The city folk conclude that Kai must have drowned in the river. Gerda, heartbroken, undertakes a quest to find him and questions everyone about his whereabouts. She speaks to the river. She visits an old sorceress who holds her captive for a time. She flees and meets a crow who tells her that Kai is in the princess's palace, so Gerda goes there and meets the princess and the prince. They provide her with provisions, but she is eventually captured by robbers and brought to their castle. There, she befriends a little robber girl and a reindeer who help to free Gerda and accompany her to the Snow Queen's palace. Gerda eventually finds Kai alone on a frozen lake. She kisses him, her love thawing his frozen heart and allowing him to recognize her again. The Snow Queen flees. Kai and Gerda dance on the ice lake, freeing Kai from the Snow Queen's spell. They venture home, where it's summertime, and they're all grown up. So that's the story of the Snow Queen. Let's draw her. Step 1. Lay down a rough, structural outline of the pose. Don't be too concerned with mistakes or details at this stage, just get the gestural sketch down. Step 2. Start in on the features of the face and hair, the focal points. For a cartoon or manga style character such as this, I'll make the eyes a bit bigger while slightly shrinking and lowering the nose and mouth. Step 3. Adjust and refine the lines of the body and clothing. Even though she's twisting and leaning back, take special care to make her symmetrical. And try to keep her proportions accurate despite the foreshortening. The size relationship between each of her shoulders, arms, hands, and breasts should mirror and complement one another. What do you call a snowman with a six-pack? An abdominal snowman. Also, at this point, don't be afraid to erase any unused or messy lines. Sometimes this simple step can even give the drawing a nice blended or ethereal look. Step 4. Darken and enhance the features and hair, adding tone or shading. Here you can design details for things such as the crown, strands of hair, or reflections in her eyes. What do you call 10 Arctic hares hopping backwards through the snow together? A receding hairline. Step 5. Darken and flesh out details of the body, dress, and magic flurries of snow. Try to keep more detail in areas of interest such as her face, hands, and upper torso, while allowing the dress, background, and outer edges to loosen up and fade. This helps your viewer to focus in on what's most interesting. What's a snowman's favorite thing to do on the weekend? Chill out. To color our Snow Queen in Photoshop, I've flipped the canvas horizontally. This allows you to see possible mistakes in symmetry or proportion of your drawn face or figure, so you can correct them as you add further tone or color. Step 1. Colorize your drawing, add subtle refining shadows, and drop in a roughed out background. Step 2. Lay in a solid base color for the skin, and paint in fleshy shadows and highlights. At this stage, you'll want to use a soft edge brush and stay mindful of your light sources. What do you call a snowboarder with no girlfriend or boyfriend? Homeless. For our Snow Queen, you can see I'm using the 2 magic snow flurries in each of her hands to provide artificial light, which will cause her face, chest, and hands to glow. Think of the face and hands as planes and shade accordingly. You can see the backs of her hands are much darker than the palms as they're facing away from the light. In contrast to the background, I'm using rather warm highlights to counteract the cool bluish shadows. The color swatches I'm using is a limited palette I sampled from a winter scene. This helps me to stick to only colors that I already know harmonize with one another. Step 3. Darken edges and refine line and shape quality while adding color. For this step, you'll generally want to use smaller brushes for areas of high detail and larger brushes for the surrounding areas. Step 4. Detail areas of interest by pushing highlights and shadows. What's the difference between a snowboard instructor and a snowboard student? 3 days. Step 5. Punch up the colors and textures, adding effects and finishing touches. What do you get when you cross a snowman and a vampire? Frostbite. As you can see, while creating original characters, you rarely know exactly what you're going to get until it's finished. But that's part of the fun. So keep creating, whether it's your own character or someone else's. Thanks for drawing it with me. Until next time.
Oh.